In this demo, we're going to give you a quick look at how reflections work in Relight. So to show you that, we're going to start out with our T-Rex scene from the Quick Start menu. Compute all, which is going to compute the shadow maps, rasterize, and shade. So that's our initial image. Now, say we want to turn on reflections for the ground. We're going to pick the ground material, like that. And we're going to set its diffuse color to black. There, and we're going to crank up the reflection coefficient to 1. Now go back to the render view and reshade, and you may be surprised to see nothing. There are no reflections. The reason for that is that in Relight there are different ways of generating those reflections using ray tracing, point clouds, whatever. And so what we need to do is add a node in the shader tree which creates those reflections, and that node can be shared by many objects, or you can have multiple nodes if you want different kinds of reflections in the same scene. So here what we're going to do is create a light called Ray Trace. You can either do that from the menu up here or from the pop-up menu in the shader tree. So create light Ray Trace. Then either turn on that light in the spreadsheet or connect it to the light set, same thing. And so in the ray trace node, you'll see all the parameters which control the ray tracing. And in particular, there's one parameter called visGroup, which determines what objects in the scene will be reflected by the ray tracer. So here we want everything to be reflected, so we pick a visGroup which contains everything. And we go back and reshade. And there are our ray traced reflections. You can see and that's if we view just the results of that shader, we can see that there's a bit of anti-aliasing. So we're going to increase the number of samples for the ray tracer, and that looks a bit better. And that's the final image. Now, suppose we want blurry reflections. One way to do that would be to go to the ground material again and turn on blur, reshade. That doesn't look too good, so we can increase the number of samples. It looks better, but not perfect. There's still a bit of grain, and it's slower. So in fact, to create glossy reflections in Relight, there's a better way. We have a node called Glossy Reflection, which uses point clouds much faster than ray tracing. So here what we're going to do is use a glossy reflection light instead of the ray trace light. Now we need to create a point cloud for it, since it is point cloud based, and so we need in particular here again to specify the visGroup, that is which objects in the scene will be reflected. We also need, as with any point cloud, to specify a disk radius, that is the size of the points in the cloud, which depends on the scale of the scene. Now we compute the point cloud and shade it. There's this checkbox there which allows us to do both at once. That's done. Now if we double click on the light, that is our shaded point cloud. That's what is going to be reflected on the ground. Now if we reshade, there we have nice glossy reflections and no grain. An interesting thing to note about glossy reflection lights with point clouds is that in fact the blurrier they are, the faster the computation is. Strange but true. So here we cranked up the intensity a bit to see to better see the reflections. Now one thing you might want to do to give a sort of a chrome look to the floor is mix glossy reflections and sharp reflections. So what we can do is to turn our ray trace light back on. That's what we just did. Turn off the blur in the ray tracing light and use both of those light sources in the scene, and we get a mix of blurry reflections and sharp reflections.